Okay, we're live. Don't say anything that you wouldn't want broadcasted to everyone.
My butt itches.
Ha.
What you streaming?
We're streaming the Spyros.
Spyro the dragon lives by the sea.
That was Puff.
Oh,
I guess I chased him away.
We are going to be live, by the way. Everybody,
we
already are live.
Yes.
Yeah, we can kind of see that.
So, Q, you want to tell the audience how much you've had?
Oh, come on, it's not that much. I had some Stella Artois and some Oktoberfest, and now I'm working on a little local apple ale, I think.
In short, he's plastered, folks, so he's gonna get all mopey and hit on everyone.
No. This is not my plastered form.
Does his plastered form make him have a blue aura like that of a living god?
Yeah, something like that.
Instead, it just makes him confess that he loves everyone in this fucking Discord for some unfathomable reason.
So, so there's something that always amazes me about PlayStation games. Like, I grew up with an N64, right? The biggest game on the N64 was 64 megabytes. So, the smallest disc on the original PlayStation was over 10 times that in size.
We've always had trouble with the gear grinder.
So what do they do with all this disk space?
Video and audio.
Audio.
Yeah.
Red Book audio, baby.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems like they mostly did the audio, but I also think that the text. I also think that they used higher resolution textures as well. They tend to be more pixelated because they didn't have the built-in bilinear filtering than the N64 did, but the textures definitely look higher resolution. I mean, it makes a big difference when you don't have to worry about having only 4 kilobytes of texture memory. Actually, I wonder how much texture memory the PlayStation has. But either way, I mean, when you have a big old disc that you can just store things on, it gives you a lot of freedom to do stuff.
Sorry guys, my connection dropped. I'm back.
Well then pick it back up again.
Oh, I'm back now.
Did I ever
Fallout 4?
Did I ever publish the first Spyro stream? I forgot.
Did you publish it? I don't know.
I shared the link.
No, I mean the first one.
Oh, let me check.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah, you did publish.
Oh, okay, good. Forgot to have the chat window up. Oh, good. No one said anything. I haven't missed anything.
It's so weird. It's like there's an entire section of gaming that I just didn't participate in because all my friends were Nintendo bros. What's the term for Nintendo bros?
Yo, what it is, motherfuckers?
Hey! It's XXL! How's it going?
Hey!
It's a faggot who needs to gas himself.
I'm glad I've turned you up, but you're still pretty quiet.
Sorry about that.
Maybe you can speak into the mic a little.
It's right next to my face right now. Is this better?
Yeah, I'll do.
But you see, when we were in the glorious land of Kanukistan, I think the PlayStation was a much bigger seller because, well, there was much more of a used market for the games up here.
Now, what games are we talking about?
Oh, the PlayStation versus the 64 back when that first came out.
Also, discs were way cheaper than cartridges. Both the manufacturer and for the consumer to buy. Oh my gosh, have you...
Oh, excuse me.
Have you, like... So, you can find on... Actually, it's on some of the old... on some of the emulator websites they have old gaming magazines. You can just download them. Have you looked at the costs and the advertisements? Good golly! It's like N64 games were like 70 to 80 bucks for a game, and the PlayStation games were all pretty much a steady price because they could just press a disc and it was really cheap.
Yeah, and you can understand why that system sold really well in a lot of Commonwealth countries, because for some wacky reason, even though we have free trade between the US and Canada, they still slap you left, right, and center for all sorts of stupid duties. There's all sorts of bizarre markups in how games are sold up here, and none of the publishers explain where the money goes. It's only been, I'd say, in the past, maybe it wasn't until around the PS2 era that prices started to being, I think, more on par to the US in terms of exchange. So, if you were kind of like gaming up here in Canada, most of the times you were either doing it on your computer, or you were going to all sorts of places renting this stuff. Which is one of the other advantages the PlayStation have. It was literally a really good rental machine.
Okay, to recap the last stream. The plan is I'm going to go through all the levels just to show everything. Get as much of the gems as I can. Then I'm going to go back and get all the orbs, because that's a lot more tedious, and you're going to want to watch me do the same thing over and over a bunch of times, and it won't be as interesting to watch. But yeah. So you'll get to see pretty much most of the game, except for like the last boss, if you want to, and then you can stop there, and then you can watch me try to get all the orbs.
Why is Spyro so freaking cute? My gosh. He's like a puppy, but a dragon. The way he moves is kind of like a puppy.
Well, I think the reason why he's cute was this was still at a time when you could do characters like that, and none of the weirder cancerous elements started cropping up when they tried to make games like that.
Nah, they did. They had that. It just wasn't as it wasn't as widely known about because the internet wasn't as big a deal as it was. As it is now.
Hi, Spyro. This talisman door will.
This level reminds me of that one Rocket Robot on Wheels level.
What's
complete with the bounce. This section of it, complete with the bouncing sheep.
The cancerous element of fandoms wasn't around because Tumblr didn't show up until 2007.
Well, I think they're thinking of a slightly different kind of cancer.
Talking about porn.
We're talking about the type of cancer that commissions story after story after story involving Spyro the Dragon and sheep.
Well, not so much that, but just kind of like how certain character designs would become immortal on the internet, like forever and a day, while something that's really well designed, like Spyro, because there's really good art design with that game. For the low polys and all that sort of stuff, that, nobody's commissioning a whole ton of fan artwork in the same way that the Sonic fandom seems to inspire all sorts of wonderful little things.
This is actually probably the best looking PlayStation game I've ever seen. Now, to be fair, I haven't seen a lot of PlayStation games.
Nah, I think. Well, okay, it depends. Do you care about frame rate? Because I thought the best one that I've seen was that Code Delta game, the one where you play as Lord Doonzani. But then that one didn't run the best, although that might have been because I was streaming it and I had the browser open at the time.
Have you ever played the Klonoa games?
Just the Wii version.
I think I played the Game Boy one.
The Wii version's fun, but it's pretty short.
Isn't that basically just an updated version of the first one? With better graphics?
If you want, after I get done with Spyro, I can play that.
Oh, that would be pretty neat to watch. Klonoa is quite adorable.
Also, Klonoa was a game made by actual furry types who worked at Namco. That's why it's designed the way it is.
That explains everything. Do you run out of air in this game?
Nope.
I guess you're a water dragon, aren't you?
I breathe
Hi,
fire.
Spyro. You must be tougher than you.
And of course, I got paid for the shark.
One of the things that helps games age better is good art direction, which is one of the reasons why Spyro still looks pretty decent.
Actually, it's one of the reasons why most Sega games, if you think about it, have aged really, really well. Even some of the low poly stuff like Virtua Fighter and whatnot. It's got, they had good people who knew what they could do with their limits, and then they know what sort of things to emphasize. Is it the shape you want to emphasize, or is it the colors, or the contours? And it looks good, and you can still play some of the stuff later on, and, you know, it doesn't age badly at all.
That's what I said about Jet Set Radio was one of those bizarre games where every single element worked perfectly together, and if you took any one of them away, it would suck. It had these three essential elements. It had some really, like, kind of hybrid light sport gameplay, but more exploration based, kind of like Tony Hawk, but more fun and silly. And then it had the music, and then it had the visuals. And if you took any of those three away, it would have sucked. But all three together, it made a really good game.
Yeah, I mean, part of the charm is seeing the difference between how you can just make a slight tweak, and you wouldn't totally lose the formula, but it would be a bit different. Like Jet Set Radio Future is much more of a blissful exploration and stunty kind of game, whereas Jet Grind Radio was all about it was all about rapid pace action and getting through the levels and trying to hit out combos and stuff. It's like two subtle differences, but they're both very interesting if you play both those games side by side. Of course, the sad thing is we can only get Grind. The irony is now we can only play Grind Radio, but we can't play Jet Set Radio Future, which is a shame because it would be nice to be able to play both.
Indeed.
So something funky about the PlayStation is I remember when I was young, going into a store to buy some software, because, you know, you used to actually buy software in a store back in the day. And there was a box with Bleem sitting on the shelf for sale in your standard, like, computer store.
What's Bleem?
Best little emulator ever made. It was a PlayStation emulator. A commercial PlayStation emulator.
That's a bit debate.
No, that's what it's an acronym. BLEEM. Best little emulator ever made. It wasn't actually the best little emulator ever made. It was actually pretty crude.
Yeah, because back in the days when Bleem had come out, that was when we had the huge emulation boom, and there were just arguments in certain circles of places like Zofars and whatnot, going like, "Oh man, what are these people trying to do? Trying to make this stuff, you know, commercial in a way, because there had always been like a weird sort of gray area for a long time because a lot of companies just simply didn't take good care of their own intellectual property. It's one thing you can be thankful for about emulation is it's forced some companies to realize, oh shit, we shouldn't let this stuff lapse or it falls to the public domain, and then people are just making, they're just playing the emulated copies of stuff.
Yeah, it's had its ups and its downs. Some of the ups are like Nintendo's entire back catalog being released again, because, yeah, but except Mario Party 1, which will never be released ever again.
Wow. But then again, I always toss up anything weird happening at Nintendo of America is due to Mr. Reggie himself. There are times when I think maybe a lot of stupid shit happens at Nintendo because Reggie's like so angry that he never gets the throne of Japan, even though he's been there since the beginning. And a part of me just thinks he's just like so angry. It's like, how dare the comptroller get the job because he's Japanese? Reggie Fils-Aimé, I was here at the beginning. Damn
the
it!
game is fun.
Yeah. If you won't give me the throne, I'll ruin all the future translations of any RPG that comes on this system. You can just see him out in the rain, his fist defiantly screaming at the top of his lungs, looking at the Nintendo headquarters.
That's a humorous mental image.
Look, man, when you've been in a position where you never get the throne, sooner or later you want that throne. Everyone wants the throne, if they can get it.
So,
Is the head that wears the crown.
you know the story behind why Mario Party 1 will never be released, right? Re-released.
Does it have something to do with the joystick thing?
Yep, it has everything to do with that. I think I brought this up on a stream before. Nintendo lost a class action lawsuit over Mario Party because people were injuring themselves. Because there's the mini games where you had to rotate the joystick really fast, which, oddly enough, aren't in any of the future Mario Party games. And people were getting massive blisters on their hand and injuring their hand. And they lost a class action lawsuit and had to give everyone a pair of gloves who claimed the...
I've heard of that.
So you'll notice, like when the Wii came out, WiiWare had Mario Party 2 and 3, but it didn't have the first one. And then when every single little arcade thing that they add to the consoles had 2 and 3, but not number 1. It's because they can't re-release it without taking those mini games out, and all of their re-releases are actually just emulators. So unless they get some mad ROM hacking skills, there's not much they can do about it.
That is really unfortunate.
But it could be worse. Could you just imagine if Mario Party had first come out for the Virtual Boy?
Everyone would throw up.
You're right, it could have been worse.
I was so disappointed that the Virtual Boy had all this 3D stuff going on, and yet so few games actually use the 3D effect.
Oh, so it's just like the 3DS.
Yeah. Apparently, there is one good game for the Virtual Boy, though, the Wario Land one.
What about the Jack Bros game?
I don't know.
I heard that was a fairly decent puzzle game.
I also heard that game was fairly rare. I don't even know if it came
was
in
also the first It was also the first game in the Shinigami Tensei series to make it to the first stateside.
Wait, what?
What, is that prior to the
Jack
first Persona
Bros.
game?
Yes, Jack Bros was the first Mega Man Tensei game to make it over to the West. And yes, before Persona.
You know, that's another nice thing you should be thankful for about emulation, is being able to play the older Shin Megami Tensei games. The first Megami Tensei, then the 2 Shin Megami Tenseis that came out.
Well, there's 2 regular Megami Tenseis that were back on the Famicom, and then there was a remake of those first 2 games called Kyoyaku Megami Tensei, and that came out on the Super Nintendo.
Hey, Ben.
Dragon's Uber Allies.
Okay, only one level left.
I guess one thing that I'm kind of interested in with Spyro 2 is this at the point where they started having the DualShock analog kick in for this one? Oh,
I don't think so. I know they released it with it, but considering I still got to use the right and left button to turn the camera on, I'm guessing not.
okay, that's kind of interesting because I know it's like when I've sort of dabbled with some of the PS2 games under emulation, is kind of noticing
Hi, Spyro. It's a...
like the time period before the analog DualShock sort of kicks in, which kind of makes a difference for certain types of games.
Speaking of Spyro, there was actually the Japanese version of this game is absolutely terrible.
Why?
Because the camera is fixed and you have to adjust it on your own. Well, I don't think you can control the camera at all. It's just fixed, making it really, really hard for you to see where you're going. Not to mention Spyro is super slow, and his running speed is pretty much the same speed as you walking in the American version. And before you ask, yes, the sequel has the same problem. The third one, not so much.
Okay.
The water workers have boxed up...
Alright, fun idea. They remake Spyro, but they get the character designers from Trigger.
Oh, that could be fun.
It would be. It would look like, well, to say, it would look like nothing else on the market. Yeah, that's one thing I'm noticing is just how charming this, like, simple style is. In comparison to sort of like how they... How do I say it? Like, the one tragedy about the Spyro brand being turned into, like, the Skylanders, like, toy sort of game series is just how over-rendered everything is. So it kind of loses a certain level of charm. Like, there's like a certain point where, you know, you can put a lot of rendering into something, but if you put too much into it, it's like, you know, you get that uncanny valley effect, or, you know, it doesn't look as charming anymore.
Yeah, it reminds me of early Rareware games. Early Rareware 3D games. Hey, I'm gonna be right back. I need a potty break.
Okay.
Alrighty, Puka.
fun story. I knew a friend of mine who basically ended up bonding over, I think, one of his girlfriends from our Japanese, from a weekend class we used to take Japanese for over this game, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then again, games like, from what I kind of hear, games like Spyro, the Mario games are chick magnets.
If I remember correctly, my brother-in-law had a PS with all 3 of these games.
Yeah, I just had the big folder full of copied games.
Okay, funny question. And this is just for some of the British folks in the audience. How big was piracy in Britain? Because up here in Canada, we used to get a lot of the gaming magazines from Britain because we were kind of like a secondary market in the Commonwealth. So one thing I used to remember seeing in like older magazines like Zero and whatnot is they were constantly making jokes. They were constantly having these ads where there was this Bluto-looking guy who was trying to trick some, like, I don't know, some Grange Hill-looking teen kids in the 80s, you know, with a pirated copy of a game at, like, what do they call it? Like a car boot sale or something? Like when you guys have, like, garage sales out of the back of your cars. So, was it that big in the 80s?
I can't really say for the 80s, but yeah, there was certainly a lot of it during the 90s, especially copied VHS tapes.
Oh yeah, that's because you guys had the video nasties.
Yeah.
I mean, it became, well, as they say, one of the things about being a Canadian in the 80s, as they say, we got a lot of British imports for all sorts of things. So, so one of the neat things was just seeing something like, say, The Young Ones and having an entire episode where they're trying to watch a video nasty. And it's like, it was just, you know, even to the point where it was just kind of being sort of made fun of at that point, because I guess thanks to, you know, VHS copying and all that sort of stuff, people could still, you know, get copies of the vids no matter what White House was trying to do to stop people from getting those films.
Well, of course, we can't have you getting our multicultural propaganda for free, goddamn.
Is Kiki back?
Well done, Spyro. Now that you have 6
know.
talismans, this door...
He may have just passed
Okay,
out.
I'm gonna... you might have.
He'll be back. He'll be back, I think.
He's gotta take a piss.
He did have 5 beers.
Yeah, but I don't want to play the boss until he gets back.
Dog movies.
Well, you got us. We're talking about car boot sales and British piracy.
I don't mind still playing. I want him to see the boss. You know.
That's understandable.
Have a nice day.
See you, man.
Later.
Oh, no, I wasn't leaving. I was finishing the thought.
Oh.
You said it was understandable, and I said have a nice day. You know, the shack meme.
No.
It's just got fucking normies just coursing through his veins right
Your
now.
game camera is currently in. If you. Okay.
Speaking of things for the United Kingdom, I ended up hearing that Stuart Campbell, of all people, got taken in for a charge on harassment. But then again, it's written in the 21st century, so goodness knows what that possibly entails. But I remember back in the days when he used to write for all sorts of gaming magazines. You could always tell his distinctive style. So, I mean, if you guys are thinking about, you know, where a lot of American folks are trying to get their you know, gaming journalism attitude stuff from, they were just getting it from the British magazines, especially from like places like Future Publishing, and other publishers, like magazines like Zero, which was kind of a, let's put it this way, it was like, it really was a lads mag back then. But it kind of devolved into something like that towards the end. It was just like, it wasn't even reading games anymore. It was just like having these weird Viz comics and stuff. Incidentally, one of the nice things about the British magazines was that for a brief period of time, they were putting like, sort of like publisher back catalog games on them for a while. Which was kind of always a neat thing. I mean, one thing that I almost picked up but I never got a chance to is when one year Amiga Format had a copy of Chris Crawford's Balance of Power on it. Which, if you're not familiar, well, how many of you are familiar with Chris Crawford's Balance of Power?
Yeah, I can't
Well
say
done, Spyro.
Okay.
Nope.
So, before Chris Crawford went crazy thinking about how to make games with with automatic storytelling plots and stuff, and sort of went to loopy la computer science land, he wrote a game called Balance of Power, which was basically imagine an incredibly, you know, you think EVE Online is about spreadsheets. Balance of Power is like a mid-'80s game that's all about you being the United States, Soviet Russia, and basically influencing all sorts of dynamic events to sort of beat the other in the Cold War.
The other side without it going on to the point where nukes start flying.
Yep. Let's put it this way, it is very much spreadsheet the video game, but it's considered one of the great strategy games of its time. It doesn't. Oh, you played it?
Not nearly. It's been difficult to get running on hardware, bro.
Now, isn't that an irony? We can emulate something like the Spyro games effortlessly, but an entire game that's mostly about text and numbers. Gosh, it's difficult to get right out of modern system.
It is kind of humorous.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go and see where it is.
What? What?
when it came out.
Actually, that was kind of like one of the best things I ever, I think, got from a garage sale in our area is during the 90s, there was just a lot of people who were avid computer gamers, so, you know, once in a while they would give away some of the, you know, some of the PC games, and one of the best things that I got out of that was a copy of the first version of System Shock that was all on
the boss.
That was all on floppies. So, you know, you're talking nightmares. Yeah, just installing it all from the floppies, getting everything set up.
Woo, I'm back.
On, shorty.
You missed the boss.
Oh shoot!
Come here now.
Damn, dude.
Destroy him and make sure it's painful.
Oh well, he can watch the stream after the fact if he wants.
Yeah.
What? The roof? Go!
There's
Get me
that.
out of here! So long, dragon.
That's part of the reason of these streams.
What a wuss.
That Ripto has caused enough damage. All his meddling has cost me a fortune. If it wasn't for Spyro, I'd be bankrupt. If Ripto were here, I'd
At
give
any
him a
rate,
piece of
welcome
my
back,
mind.
Puka.
In fact, I'd give him a lot more than that. I was a champion bantamweight boxer at university, and I still know a few moves. Take that, and that. Boo. Why are you?
Oh, hey, Yokon.
Hello.
So Q, how you doing?
I'm a little on the dizzy side. I'm switching to water now.
Good Puka.
Have you ever played the Game Boy Spyro games?
Wait, what?
There are 3 Game Boy Spyro games.
Uh-oh.
I probably won't stream them, but they're. I played the first one and a bit of the third. The first is about as good as the first Spyro, except it's top-down 2D, kind of like Diablo or StarCraft, I guess.
Wait, what? You know,
Well, yeah,
Diablo
the
and
Game Boy
StarCraft, and Diablo, StarCraft, and Spyro are not things that I usually see like all.
Okay, no, let me rephrase that. Better compared. It's like Sonic 3D Blast.
Oh.
Well, well, I bet a rich dragon.
Really, the only similarity is that they're both isometric.
Yeah. So yeah, imagine playing Spyro, dashing all over the place, faster than Sonic the Hedgehog, and on the Game Boy Advanced.
But here's the question, does it play well?
Not as bad as you think.
And there was also one more that was a crossover with Crash Bandicoot.
I forgot about that. I did not hear good things about that one. No, I never played it though.
It was called Spyro Orange, and there was another one called Crash Purple.
What I really liked about the Spyro games on the Game Boy Advanced was the levels where you play as Sparks, and it's kind of like a 2D shooter.
here's the next pitch. The next Spyro game is a cave shooter.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Wait, what's a cave shooter?
A shoot 'em up game by a cave. They like to do Danmaku style, especially.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, like Dodonpachi is an example. You've heard of Dodonpachi, right?
In passing.
Okay, good. I'd be disappointed if you hadn't heard of it.
Yeah, so, like I was saying before I left, the way the enemies and NPCs look reminds me of, like, remember how Rare used to do those flappy jaw things? It reminds me of that in their 3D game. Like the Conker's Bad Fur Day look. And it's really stylistic, and it's stylistic 3D, as in nothing else other than early 3D modeling had this style, and it's kind of charming.
They should have tried to emulate it with ukulele.
Yes, they should have. But if we were gonna go over the shoulda, coulda, wouldas with ukulele, man.
Oh, there are plenty of woulda, shouldas with ukulele, but what's weird is this is one of the few moments where H. Bomber guy was kind of wrecked in his assessment, like, why are there eyes on everything? But I think what was more interesting was one review that pointed out just how empty a lot of the worlds kind of were. Like, okay, it's non-linear, but then there's just all this space between you and the enemies and the stuff that you're looking for. That doesn't feel like it's being used correctly.
Like, okay, the case study in in 3D platforming levels is Bob-omb Battlefield. Everyone should study Bob-omb Battlefield if they're going to make a 3D collectible platform. The reason is, if you look at Bob-omb Battlefield and you split it up, you can subdivide it and subdivide it and subdivide it. And if you get to the point where you subdivided it to the point where you've got little sections and each section has something interesting to do with it, those sections are really small. In other words, the level has a lot to do in it, and it has a lot per square foot to do. It's really kind of interesting if you look at this Bob-omb Battlefield level and you start trying to break it up about every single little interesting landmark in there. They're everywhere. There's just... It's obviously intended to teach you many of the mechanics of the game, and it does it, because by just having little playground-like areas just scattered throughout the whole thing.
Hello.
Those bottles of dynamite on them.
Yep, and I got hit.
Are those men in togas?
Yes. I don't know why they're purple though. Yeah, that's one thing never really explained about the enemies. Like, they don't say, oh, they're from Ripto. No, it's just they're there.
Spyro, you make a great secret agent.
You're just like
Now
Kirby, you
Andrew
go
and I
around
can
beating up
complete our
the
mission.
just the people who are hanging around.
Yeah.
But ask yourself this. Do you really want the Jennifer Hepler version of Spyro's Derpus lore? I'm just saying.
I guess.
Now, sometimes, if something like Spyro, it's nice that there's not Derpus lore kind of going on.
Man, yep. The Walmart that we always went to every week, they had the PlayStation 1 for so long.
Yeah, well, that's one of the big advantages that the PlayStation was well, that's one of the things that Sony sort of had when they had their shit together, was those marquees sold that system like nothing else. Like, I hear stories of some of the marketing campaigns they used to have, once again in Britain, back during the 90s, especially when it first came out, where they had a lot of the systems over in pubs. So it was kind of like that was a huge seller. And it sort of came in right about the time that the arcades were sort of kind of fading away and dying. So,
Thank you for
you know, all of a sudden you had this, PlayStation right there in the pub.
Well, hello there,
And
Mr.
knowing the
Dragon.
fact that you could eventually buy one later down the line
I wish I could
made
take
that
you
one
on a
hell of
tour
a marketing
temple,
campaign.
But a bunch of lousy Earthshapers have encased it in stone.
Man, this is one of my favorite levels.
But are you sure it's one of your favorite levels? I mean, it's full of sand, and it gets into everything.
How far are you back in the stream?
You know what is confusing to me about this game is so many things that I'm used to being billboards are fully 3D. Like the bouncing numbers when you pick things up, or the musical notes when you de-stone.
Yeah, that'd usually be done with a sprite one.
Yeah.
Oh, mate of mine's still doing that echo play shit. Ever since that video.
The hills are alive with the sound of music.
It's great to be free. Now there is only one satyr left to rescue.
Why did I have to get rid of the PlayStation? I want to fucking play this now.
Well, you see, it all depends. Did you give it away for a fine PC or for any of the Xboxes?
Oh.
No, I moved out.
Oh.
Must be quite something when you're a dragon and you get eaten by a fish.
Yep.
No, that's called being eaten by a leviathan. Bonus points to anybody who knows what I'm talking about. Well, actually, bonus points if anyone understands that the reference I'm talking about is not about the biblical snake, but actually belongs to a specific creature written by a specific fantasy author. I figured Rain might know what that one is.
Say that again. The music is a bit loud.
Okay, nobody knows what that is. All right.
No, I missed
Rain, the guy who wrote Ilmet and Length and Lankmar. Who was the author?
What? Lankmar, Fritz Leiber. You said Lankmar, right?
Oh. Okay, now I remember. It's the Farfan Grey Mouser stories.
Yeah, that's Fritz Leiber.
Basically, in that world, in that series of novels, there's this thing called Leviathan. But the Leviathan isn't like a snake-like sort of dragon or anything. What it is it's a walking killer whale that lives in swamps. So
Dan, are you here, Dan?
Oh, I've been pressing the wrong button.
Okay.
Yeah, Fritz Leiber. Ilmet and Lankmar.
Yeah. So one of the things I was talking about was that one of the interesting creatures that he built for that world was this thing called a Leviathan. Basically, a Leviathan is a swamp-dwelling killer whale that walks, I think, on all fours or 6 legs, if I remember correctly. So just imagine that, right? You're just like by the coast, and you see like a whole like you see like a family of killer whales, and then all of a sudden they start walking up and getting up on the land, and you're like seeing them walking towards you with little stubby feet.
Alright, where's the exit to this place?
Oh, hi, Dragon Boy.
The one thing I don't like about this level is that one of the orbs you gotta do an escort mission to get.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'm not
every
gonna
game
stick around
soon.
for that.
Every game, you have to have one bad escort mission. Look at it this way. It's not like playing Dragon's Dogma where every escort mission, if you don't get it right the first time, you don't get a chance to repeat it.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, it's kind of weird because one of the things they don't tell you about is that Dragon's Dogma, there's actually this weird affinity system, but there's no real way to kind of know the affinity of certain characters towards your actions. It's like there are ways to detect it, but it's like this really subtle thing that if you didn't know about it, you wouldn't know how to act on it, as it were. Because the affinity system basically decides who is the closest character that you've assisted, and that's when, like, basically the middle of the game boss, which is the main dragon that you're fighting, suddenly comes and takes up whoever is closest to you as a sort of damsel or person in distress back to their lair.
Huh. Okay, guys, I'm having trouble keeping my eyes open, so I'm gonna wrap it up here.
Alright.
Alright, I'm actually am too. I'm starting to nod a bit.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thanks for joining us, everyone who joined. Thanks for watching, everyone who's watching.
You're welcome. Good night.